Gojo fans have flatlined with the newest chapter of JJK. With this image pretty much now being a reality, I think it just speaks for itself how Gojo fans are currently doing. The fact that Gojo's body now is basically being inhabited by Yuta, I think speaks to the lengths that Gege will go to prove to the entire fan base that, yeah, Gojo's gone. He's dead. Like, he is... Wrap it up. He's not coming back. And I think that at this point, any copium for the last 7 to 8 months that Gojo fans have had were just completely crushed into non-existent particles, dust, with this chapter. And it is honestly, for one half, hilarious, but also at the other side, it's a little bit sad. It's sad to see a character like Gojo permanently gone. But I'm going to say this before I go any further, okay? As much as I did not like how Gojo died, like how he went out, I do think that Gege keeping Gojo dead, especially with this chapter, was for the best. I think that in the grand scheme of things, Gege did the best he could have done with the writing in the situation, and anyone trying to say that this is absolute ass just is upset because they're Gojo fans and doesn't want to actually understand how amazing this is for the writing and how it would just undermine the tension and everything else within the story. So let's get right into it. So basically, this chapter of JJK is legitimately fascinating. Obviously, you know, we have the actual translations here, the written translation. The official full chapter isn't out yet, but we have the written translations, as you can see here. And there's a lot to really talk about with this, which I want to cover in a second. But I want to talk about Gojo, okay? It's very clear to see how Gojo fans are doing, just by this image alone. They are pretty upset. I've seen a lot of Gojo fans today drop the story because, you know, Gojo's gone now. Like, Gojo is permanently gone, so their reason for potentially reading the story is over, because they had hope that he might come back, and I've seen a lot of people just saying that JJK is just straight up, you know, booty cheeks now, or it's awful, and, you know, Gege can't write, etc., and, you know, basically dropping the manga. And I want to say, it is valid, okay, to not like Gojo's death, as I already kind of briefly stated at the beginning of the video. It is valid. I feel like Gege could have definitely handled Gojo's death a lot better, because clearly, you know, Gege doesn't like Gojo. We know this, okay? I'm not going to go back in that whole tangent, but yeah, he doesn't like Gojo, and it shows the links that, you know, Gege will go just to get rid of Gojo, and to desecrate his very image, and that's honestly hilarious to me. The fact that Gege has now not just killed off Gojo and crushed the fans of hoping Gojo's going to come back, but straight up had a chapter dedicated to basically desecrating Gojo's corpse, and having Kenjaku's curse technique used from Yuta to be able to put his brain into Gojo's corpse pretty much effectively says, yeah, like, Gojo's image has just completely been desecrated, and the very act of this is basically a villainous move. It's like what you would see from a villain or an antagonist in a story, and honestly, I respect it. I respect the fact that the good side of the story does these type of antics to be able to win against Sukuna, because it's like, if you're in a life or death situation, you're determining the fate of the world itself, so to speak. You know, underhand tactics no longer matter. Like, you do whatever you gotta do to win, so to speak. And I appreciate that Gege, you know, does this. He is having the good side do this, and Yuta having this whole moment with the written translation saying that he would become the monster, since, you know, Gojo is a monster, he'll become basically the new monster. I really respect this. Like, this is legitimately amazing stuff. Like, I absolutely love the writing here, and I think that it perfectly fits, like, Gojo's, you know, epilogue of him being gone now, to just kind of like what Yuta is determined to do and all that to bring down Sukuna. It's legitimately amazing. I think that overall, the best decision was made to finally settle the argument with Gojo and what's going on with his body, etc. It's great. But, getting into the main point, though, I want to talk about the fact that Yuta now using this technique is such a gray area, and I think that this is fascinating because Yuta potentially is going to die. Like, let's talk about that subject right now, okay? Because that is obviously the main point of the chapter, is that Yuta used Kenjaku's curse technique, okay? Because he has cloning. He can clone a technique, so to speak. So, it says that he used Kenjaku's technique, which kind of implies that Kenjaku truly is dead now. And then, upon using Kenjaku's technique, he used the ability to transplant his own brain into Gojo. Basically, Yuta gave himself a lobotomy and removed Gojo's brain, gave Gojo a lobotomy, and effectively put his brain into Gojo's corpse. Lobotomy Kaisen is real. It is real. Okay, I gotta talk about this. I gotta say, can we talk about the fact that one of the things that obviously Gege doesn't like about Gojo is his personality, and the fact that Gojo has effectively gotten a lobotomy. And he doesn't have the same personality anymore. It's Yuta in his corpse. It pretty much means that Gege probably likes this. Like, Gege actually likes Gojo now, because obviously it's Yuta's personality. When you think about that, that's pretty funny. It's like, the only way that Gege could potentially like Gojo, if he's not dead, is to just lobotomize him. So, okay. I gotta stop laughing, but that's funny, now thinking about that. But, back into the point, though, Yuta using the curse technique is such a gray area. We don't know if he's going to survive after 5+ minutes. The technique can wear out, and pretty much his body can just give out. The brain that he transplanted will give out because Kenjaku's technique ends, and then he just ceases to exist, so to speak. That is a very high chance, but obviously Yuta took it upon himself to do that, and use that technique to be able to win against Sukuna. And I love the way this is being used. It's a very evil thing to do, because it's like, so many times in shonen manga, you have it to where characters obviously have the option where they could do something a little bit more of a darker gray area to do things to be able to win, and they don't do it. They decide to be a goody-goody two-shoes and not, do it, because they want to stay pure good, fine, okay, understand, morals, etc. But it's like, JJK, up to this very point within the story, has showcased that, it's a dark world. It's a very unforgiving world, okay? And regardless of how you feel about that or not, I'm glad that the main characters, the heroes, etc., are actually using basically villainous-like techniques to win. I think that's really cool. I love that. It's one of the things I respect from Gege here, and once again, as I already said, I like the fact that Gojo hasn't returned, because I think that would have done so much more damage to JJK than what we could even imagine, and I'll talk about that in a second. I'll segue into that in a moment, because that is very important to talk about. But the point of the matter is that Yuta's technique, using what he has right now, there's only a few options available to him. Either A, he's going to, have Limitless and 6 eyes, and he's going to be in Gojo's body for the rest of his days for years to come, if he survives the fight, obviously. Or after 5 minutes, the technique's gonna wear out and he's just gonna drop dead. Like, that's really the only options. Now, there is a secret third option, obviously. I mean, there's just so many mysteries with, like, Kenjaku's technique and the whole thing here with transferring bodies and stuff. It's such a gray area. Anything could theoretically happen. And since JJK has just had so much to do with the message and themes of, like, the body and the soul, so many things could also happen here, because it's like Kenjaku's technique is in this body now, you have like Yuta's actual very essence and soul's in this body, and then you also have like Gojo's vessel being used. It's just like a monstrous amalgamation of abilities, and I mean, regardless of whatever happens, we can just definitely say at this point, from what we have seen from the story, Yuta is effectively the strongest sorcerer. Like, I know, obviously, Sukuna, we gotta glaze him. He needs to be glazed because, I mean, he's been doing the constant gauntlet for, like, a year plus now. But looking at everything, like, Yuta has just some insane stats. Like, I mean, he has, like, Kenjaku's ability, which we all know is just ridiculous. I mean, Kenjaku is able to read into Geto's memories and use his techniques, so the fact that that is possible, it brings into question, like, what can, Yuta do in Gojo's body? Like, does he really have access to everything? Does Yuta still have access to his old techniques as well? There's just so many questions there, but regardless of whatever happens, it's just such an interesting development taking place with the fight. Now, getting into a little bit more of the negative side of things, one thing I talked about in last week's video I made for JJK, and I want to restate that here. As much as I like this chapter and kind of having, like, Yuta go through this development of saying that, he wants to become a monster to be able to save everyone and stuff, which is really cool. Love that development stuff. I think it's very sad that, once again, Gege is shifting the perspective away from Yuji to Yuta. Like, don't get me wrong, I like Yuta, and I like the development going on. It's really freaking cool. Like, this is some really cool stuff. I'm not against it. I'm just saying, I don't like how every time that Yuji really is getting a moment, like, he's actually going to be able to fight and win and have an awakening, etc., he's sidelined, so to speak, by other characters that come in. Because it's like the other chapter, you had Todo arrive to be able to help out and all that, which is really cool. You know, Todo arriving and helping out, you know, Yuji. It was like, oh, okay, so we're at the ending of a fight, because this has kind of happened in the past, where major fights happen with, you know, Yuji, Todo comes in and helps out. So it's like, that's pretty cool. But the fact of the matter is that now that Yuta has come in, and he's obviously using Gojo's body, it's stealing all the spotlight away from, like, Todo and also Yuji, and I'm a little bit upset about that. Now, obviously, judging by just the narrative of the story, Yuji's got to fight Sukuna. Like, that's the truth. Like, he has to. I mean, with the revelation of him basically being the nephew of Sukuna and stuff, I mean, yeah, it's got to happen. Now, obviously, maybe it might not, but most of the time there is tropes and stuff in shonen for a reason, and that's typically how it turns out. So, with that being considered, Yuta's overall ability here is going to just be used to weaken Sukuna even more. That's really what's going to happen here. And then Yuji's going to go in once again, which is fine, obviously, because it settles the matter with Gojo's vagueness if he's alive or not, but it's like, I don't like I said, the spotlight being taken away from, you know, Yuji. Okay, with that being said, let's get into Gojo, okay? So, Gojo's death and what this chapter does for the story. Obviously, a lot of people are upset they're dropping JJK because Gojo's now permanently dead. And like I said, even though I don't agree with Gojo's initial death, you know, that chapter and stuff, I do like the fact that he's gone and he didn't come back. Because we would have had a Bakugo situation. Like, straight up. Like, look, I'm just gonna be honest. Like, Gege may not be, like, he's not perfect. He definitely sometimes writes deaths for shock value. Let's be honest, he does. But I think bringing back a character would also do so much irreversible damage to the story. And I'm glad that Gojo is not back in, like, oh, he's actually live, use reverse technique, etc. You know, it's literally just Yuta and his corpse. And I think that's really cool. I mean, it would have been a little bit better if he would have done maybe a curse spirit or something. That would have been interesting. But I'm glad Gojo, he's gone. He's just gone. He's off the table. Because that means that the discussion with that's gone. But also it means that Gege is sticking to his guns and saying, yeah, when a character dies, they're dead. They're gone. Just get over it. That's basically what he's saying. So, I appreciate that. I appreciate that Gege is keeping him gone. As much as it pains me to see such a good character gone, he's gone. So, yeah. Anyways, with that being said, the chapter overall, legitimately amazing. Like, I absolutely love this chapter of JJK. I think that, you know, Gege, obviously, he had a lot of ups and downs in this past year with some of the things, like I've talked about with Sukuna glazing and stuff. But I will say, though, these chapters have been getting really good, and I am loving what's happening here. We'll see where it's going to go. But, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy my content and you want more, please subscribe. It does help me out a lot. And with that, Chibi out.